temperament tests, pit bulls do not test any different. Those dogs were not bred to fight. You nurture it, that's what you're going to get. If you correct it, it goes away. So they have a spotlight on pit bulls.
Let me interrupt. We are back with another edition of the Iron Sharp podcast, and we have two special guests. You guys have seen them on a couple of individual episodes, and now we're bringing them together. So introduce yourself to everybody.
My name's Carlee, and I train dogs.
I'm Benji, and I'm a dog behaviorist.
And you did that thing with the E.
Thing with the E?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, ethology,
Yeah,
yes.
that one.
I went to school for ethology, yes.
And that is?
Studying animal behavior in their natural environment.
And I went to the school to figure that shit out. We've got interrupted on our last talk because we had mic issues and we lost a lot of time, and we were just getting into the meat and potatoes of everything, and then we had to
wrap it up,
man. So Carlee is a dog trainer, but she's very modest. She's very humble. She's been training. You're better than novice, I would say.
I'd say you're at least intermediate to advanced. Yeah.
There you go.
You got it.
She's been training for about 3 years, and you tell her something, she actually goes and does it. It's actually interesting to see.
You're coachable.
Oh, that's the word. Let's talk about raising puppies, okay? So you've raised some puppies, and the question is, if you could redesign how people raise puppies based on behavior science, this is for you, but chime in on yours as well, what would you change first, especially in the pet culture?
Boy, I love these questions because you asked them and it's probably expected to be just like a one-liner answer.
No,
but the problem is that within dog behavior and dog training, I feel like everything is so multifaceted and everything is very complex and very complicated. Mm-hmm. There's not just like one thing that I would do to kind of change the culture. But I would say that one of the biggest things is that I think compatibility is one of the biggest issues. And I think people go out and they get a dog because they see it's cute.
It's cute.
It's beautiful.
It was on a movie.
Yes, exactly. Or my cousin had one of those and it was really well behaved. So I want to get that dog. But of course, like them and their cousin live two completely different lifestyles. Mm-hmm. And so I think that one thing that would be really cool that I would like to see is eventually, because I mean, they do this with human adoption. Like, you go through a very, very long process before you can adopt a human child into your family. You have to get, people come into your house to make sure you live in a good neighborhood or make sure you have the income to be able to take care of that said child. They make sure you're compatible with like lifestyles and like how did this kid, if it's an older child, like how were they raised and all that stuff. And so there's a lot of, there's a lot of things to make sure that you are a fit as a family. I wish that we would see that in the dog training world where you could actually say like, this is my lifestyle. This is what I do for a living. This is how much time I have this many kids or I live alone. And then you're paired with an expert that can pair a dog with your lifestyle and say like, I think that this would be a better fit for you. And then they get you in touch with trainers to say like, this is how you can.
I think people actually try that because they'll call breeders and be like, hey, I need a dog that's going to do this, this, and this. And you know what breeders do? Oh, they say, yeah, he's good with kids. Yeah, he's good with this.
Which is, yeah. So, I mean, it's not, that's why I said it's not just one thing. But I would say that like in my experience, when people call me, they're like, yeah, we got this dog because we just love Aussies. They look beautiful, but they don't know what an Aussie was bred for. They don't know what it's doing. Or like there was one of the worst situations. I had an elderly lady, and I am not ageist at all. I do think that old people can still do things. But when I saw what her lifestyle was and she got a 90-pound German Shepherd puppy, I was kind of like, I don't think that this is the right dog for you. And the dog ended up getting anxious and because she wasn't giving it any proper rules, boundary structure, or any type of mental stimulation whatsoever. So this dog was biting everyone that came into the house, and she's, being a 70-year-old woman, could not hold him back. And so it was, it's just one of those situations where I think like when she went into the shelter, like someone should have said something like, I don't think this is going to work out very well, but no one said anything. And so I wish that there was just some sort of program or more programs and better programs where people could actually be matched with the type of dog. Yeah.
I think just we would have to raise the level of the honesty in the dog world before that happens. Because like I said, I've heard people
just
say,
problem. Yeah,
I've heard people say, I'm like, no, that dog is not good for these people. But you can only do so much. What would be one of the things that people do wrong raising puppies?
Not very I think people expect too much too early. I feel like people should take their time with their dog. It's not your dog doesn't need year 2 obedience when they're 5 months old or 6 months old. I think just luring and enjoying your time that you have with your dogs, because they're not here for a long time. So I think just taking your time and enjoying every moment is where a lot of people go wrong.
Especially about 6, 7 years ago. 6, 7. People weren't having fun, and you can tell that the dogs were not having fun. And I've sent people videos, and I'm like, hey, if my dogs ever look like this, tell me to go on vacation. Tell me I need a break, because the dog is not enjoying it. Yeah, the dog's responding. Yeah, the dog's doing everything, but it's like, oh my God, if I mess up, the world's going to end.
Almost walking on eggshells kind of thing. Yeah.
I never want my dogs to look like that. And a lot of people can't tell body language. So I think that's one thing that I wish people did was did more research on body language of what a dog's supposed to look like when they're having fun, when they're enjoyable, because we talked about that last time. People think, oh, the dog's
the dogs will communicate with you how they're feeling, whether they're happy, sad, anxious, scared. But if you can't read the signs, then you're misinterpreting or missing the signals altogether.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people get bit.
Exactly.
Oh, he was doing this. Yeah, you should have stopped. He didn't want you to pet him. And then you try to reach over his head, and the dog's like, nah, I don't know you. I tried to tell you, don't touch me.
Right.
And then I always love the one, I got bit. Well, did you give it a hole? No, there's no hole. Okay, you didn't get bit then.
Yeah.
If a dog is going to bite you,
they'll let you know.
Going to have a hole. You got corrected.
Yeah.
And he was being very gentle with that correction as well. And imagine if he actually wanted to bite you.
Yeah, I have to remind people that too. That a lot of times they'll have a big dog and it'll nip their kid, and they're like, the dog bit my child. And I look at the child, there's nothing on him. I'm just like, if that big dog wanted to hurt your kid, he would have. He did not want to hurt your kid. He wanted your kid to probably leave him alone for a second, give him some space, which there is no other way for a dog to do that than to nip. That's how they do it with each other. That's how they do it with other animals. So they're going to do it with a kid that's poking him in the eyeball. It's going to be like, I'm going to kind of give you a correction and say, hey, get away from me.
And he's probably walked away. He's probably, barked and did everything. And he's like, hey,
no one's vouching for me. No one's protecting me.
You guys are going to handle this? I know. All right, I'm going to do it my way.
Right.
And then the dogs get punished. The dogs get brought back. The dogs get, overcorrected. And I always ask people, well, what did the kid do to the dog? My daughter's 8 years old, and Rocco's laying down on the concrete, whatever. We're in the house. And she kicks him. And I look at her, so I kick her. And she said, why'd you kick me? I said, why'd you kick my dog? And then I kicked her again. And then she looked at me. I said, you don't kick my dog. And I kicked her again. And I'm not booting my child. I'm not it's FIFA. We're not World Cup. And it was just like a
tap,
a little tap. Just let her know. And it was probably maybe 2 years later. Rocco's laying down. And she looks at him. She looks at me. She walks around. I didn't kick him.
Right.
So especially if people are having dogs and kids, they have to correct the kid, because the dog is going to be a dog regardless, and they're only going to take so much. And when they reach that point, you can't blame.
They'll tolerate it until they don't. Yeah, it's always like they've tolerated possibly even for years before they finally just say, I don't like this anymore. Yeah, I find it interesting what you said, because I actually, coming from where I'm at, because obviously we come from two different, I'd say, approaches to things, but that's because we're teaching different things. But I find that actually, in my experience, people are only having fun with the dogs and they're not teaching them any boundaries or rules. And so in my experience, all I see is just fun, hugs, cuddles, and snuggles all day long. And then they can't get their dog to sit still for 5 seconds. So it's interesting because I'm having a completely opposite experience from you guys, where it's the dog is just, they're having a great time. They're loving life. They're jumping all over the place and everything, but there's absolutely no structure whatsoever. So when I go in there, I have to tell people okay, do not give that dog another treat because they don't have any context of why you've given it to them. Don't give them any more affection. Stop the affection. No more affection. You've given them so much affection that they just think it's free. I can do whatever I want for it. And they're just doing, and so then the dog becomes basically, an asshole that's just a little spoiled, rotten little brat, and they think they can get everything. And then they never, and the reason they call me is because then there was that one day where they needed the dog to do something and the dog acted out just like a spoiled brat would. It's just wait, this isn't our relationship. I'm supposed to be able to do whatever I want. And then that's the moment they call me because the dog bit them, or the dog peed everywhere. The dog started, scratching and clawing and chewing on things. And they're like, well, what's going on? I'm like, you've never asked your dog to sit still once. in like 8 months.
Yeah.
And now, yeah, that's why your dog acted out, because then you wanted them to sit still and they're freaking out like, wait, that's not how it's supposed to be. So I actually, the exact opposite. I have to tell people, when you get a puppy, it sounds harsh, but you have to look at that Rottweiler puppy, as cute as it is, and you have to see that puppy as the big slobbering mangy mutt that it's going to be. When I get a puppy, I don't see it as a cute little puppy. I see it as the big, strong, powerful animal it's going to be. And I treat it like that from day one. Like, if I expect you to sit down, I expect you to sit down. Now, where I do also kind of go into it, where you were saying, like, I'm not going to ask that dog to sit still for 4 hours. It's a puppy. It can't do that. But it can sit still for 5 minutes, and I expect it to. And so I will ask it to sit still for 5 minutes. If it does so, then it's like, all right, bud, you can get off now. Let's go play. Let's go have some good times. But it's in those moments, if you don't start early teaching a dog, hey, I just want you to sit still. Well, then at 8 months old, all of a sudden they've practiced a lot of bad things, and now you're having to backtrack and you have to reteach it new things, which that gets a lot harder when you have to reteach it things rather than just from day one. You set the standard of how things are going to go from day one. But I would say that's just because I come from a background of people are calling me because usually there's a problem. But I do agree that, like, you can have some people where I have walked into some people's homes and it is like a military zone and the dog's like 8 weeks old. And I'm like, bro, your dog doesn't know that yet. Like, especially like the communication, as we talked about, they're yelling at the dog. And the dog's compliant because the dog's just scared. It has no idea what you're saying. Yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly. It's like I'm just not going to move because apparently if I do, I'm going to get swatted. And I'm just like, bro, you're a little too much here. Like, I'm like, I wouldn't want to be happy in this home either. So it's like, there does need to be some play. That's good for dogs because they learn while doing that. But there does also have to be some structure.
But I think people don't understand that they have to have the balance, because I'm all for a dog listening, doing what they're supposed to. But at the same time, I like dogs' personality. I got into dogs because I liked how they interacted. I just liked being around them. There's a joke. You can lock your wife and your dog in the trunk of a car and you come back in an hour. You know who's going to be happy to see you?
The dog.
They don't care. They're always really going to be.
Horrible analogy, but I understand it. Like,
but I think people have to understand that there has to be the balance of it. Like, you have to set the rules, you have to set the boundaries, but it's not, their dog is not on clock 24/7.
It'll lose its mind.
They need to be listening all the time. I'm like, are you on call for your job 24/7? No. Okay. So why do you expect your dog? When I'm talking to my dog, yeah, it needs to be crisp. It needs to be fast. It needs to be good. It needs to be exact. Other than that, I really don't care what they're doing.
But also part of what goes into that, though, is the relationship that you build with your dog. If you've built a good relationship with your dog. So even like in my backyard, I mean, I'm bringing in some pretty messed up dogs in my backyard. So yeah, in my backyard, I'm pretty much a hard ass back there because I've got dogs that have mauled other dogs to death before. So like, you're not going to be romping around in my backyard. It's not happening. However, I do allow you the freedom to go sniff, chew a stick, pee on something, like go, be a dog. Like I give you that freedom. But if I give a lot of time to that dog and I've got a good relationship with them, like I have, we've gone on walks together, we've played a little bit together, we've built that relationship. Well, then if they're often that while they're doing their thing, just kind of off, having fun, if I call them, they can turn it back on and they can, time to go back to dad and everything. Exactly. So that's the kind of thing but you don't get that relationship from only rules. You don't get that relationship from only play. You get it from that balanced, they feel safe, they feel vouched for. Like my dogs don't feel like they have to correct other dogs because they know I'm going to do it. If they're like my dogs can, but they're just like, they'll sit there and wait. A dog's coming up and they'll look at me like, what do you want me to do? And sometimes I'll be like I'll just wait and be like, you can correct him. Or I'll step up in front and say, hey, get away. So that way my dogs are like, cool, dad's got my back. He's not going to make me like have to correct these dogs all the time. But it's, there's a relationship of trust there where they know I'm going to keep them safe. They know that there's a relationship there that I'm going to play. I'll bring a ball out and say, let's have a good time. Let's have a great time. But there's also that relationship there where if we're in a public space, Toby, sit down, do not make a noise, don't do anything. Like that, my dog's name is Toby, but I'm like, it's like, you're going to sit there and you're not going to move. Like if he was in here right now and I told him to lay down here, he's not moving. I want him to think that if I don't release him, that is where he dies. However, he knows that that's not where he's going to die because I've always allowed him to get up and I've always allowed him to go explore and stuff. And so it's just that trust relationship that you build with them.
Gotta build the bond. I say that to everybody. You gotta build the damn bond with your dog. So I think this is going to be a really good question for you. This was one of the hardest things for me. How do you tell people that their expectations are unrealistic without discouraging them? Yeah. Think about it. Basically, how do you tell somebody let's not say that. They're not the most intelligent. No, let's not say that either. They have delusions of grandeur.
There you go. Delusions of grandeur. Actually, I do actually use that phrase with a lot of my clients. So for like to kind of pinpoint it to a specific example so it makes sense. Potty training. A lot of times people just expect their dogs to just like, I don't want my dog pooping and peeing in my house. And they just want it. I just want this dog to not poop and pee in my house. And I will walk in, and how I'll tell them, like, okay, so I just want you to understand, especially when it's a smaller dog, like they have a small little poodle or something like that. I'm like, your dog's bladder is the size of a walnut, maybe even smaller. There's not a lot of wiggle room in there. And so when they get full, it's like they need to go. So you have to kind of expect that there's going to be an accident. How you respond to that is very important. You know, that's what gets the dog to understand, like, it's not, they made a mistake, cool, clean it up, just do better next time. I just tell people, like, your dog's going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. Do not, so I kind of flip it to where it's like, I know that you're going to make mistakes. Give yourself some grace because you're learning as well as while the dog is learning. So if I kind of approach it that way and let them know, like, hey, look, you're not going to be perfect. Neither is the dog. You guys are learning together. So forgive yourself, forgive the dog, and just let's both do better next time. I try to make it more of like, we're all in this together. We're all learning rather than yeah,
together.
Exactly. Rather than them thinking like that I'm like coming at them like, you need to do this, and this and that. So how I kind of let them know that is just, I approach it from a, hey, I didn't understand all that stuff either when I was first learning this. Like, look, I messed up a lot training dogs when I was growing up. It's a learning process, but you're also learning this dog. Because even if you've had golden retrievers your whole life, you're like, I've had 10 golden retrievers and this is the 11th one and I've never had this issue. Well, that's because you haven't had this golden retriever. All the other golden retrievers, they're gone now. That ship has sailed, you know, rest in peace. But like, this is its own dog. He or she, they have their own things going on. So don't expect them to be like those other dogs. Expect them to be like the dog they are. They're going to be lovely. They're going to be beautiful. They're going to be a wonderful companion. But if you keep trying to make them the other dogs you had, you are going to fail. Make them the best dog that they are. And sometimes those conversations get harsh. But for the most part, I come at it from an empathetic kind of standpoint of like, hey, like, look, I deal with this with my dog too. Like, look, my dog does the same thing and it's really hard and it frustrates me and it's okay to get frustrated. I'll also tell them, like, in those moments, if you feel like you're becoming frustrated, since your dog can feel your energy, take a minute, put him in the crate, you go in the other room, drink some wine, like, center yourself, like, you know, do like whatever. Yeah, exactly. You know, namaste, kind of just like get yourself into a more, you know, peaceful aura about yourself, breathe, and then go back to grab your dog and say, okay, let's work on this again. Let's try again.
One thing I told her before is, I said, show them, make the dog fail. Like, if they're like, oh, my dog can do exactly what your dog does. All right, cool. This is what we're going to go do. Hey, do this real quick. Do this. Come on over here. And then they're like, oh, my dog actually can. And it's like, yeah, I was trying to explain that to you, but you said your dog could do it. So come on, let's go. And then again, that way you have to be you have to toe that line because it kind of pisses people off when you put them on the spot and make them fail. But some people, that's the way they're going to learn the best. And that's one thing that I had to do because most of the time, people that I was dealing with were twice as old as I am. You know, they're my parents' age. They're looking at me. They have kids older than me. So I'm telling them something. They're like, you child, like you don't know. And it's like, all right, cool. I don't know. Let's do what you said the dog can do. Come on. And then and then the dog either does it or it fails. So either way you win. Either way you win. It's like, okay, cool. We don't have to do that anymore. But once you show them that, and then it's like, you have to be able to give them something after their dog messes up. Be like, hey, this is the steps that we need to take to get your dog to do what you want them to do. And it may take 6 months. It may take a year to get to that point, but you're showing them that, hey, there is steps to get it. And it's always good if you have a dog that's doing it and their dog isn't, and be like, hey, this is what we did with dog A. That's how we got him there. We took the steps that it went. You may not have saw all the steps that it took, but this is exactly what we did to get your dog there.
I come from a different background. So like, I do want to hear like your opinion, like how would you approach that if somebody came up to you and had delusions of grandeur? Like, what would your approach be?
If we're talking about like sport wise, if someone wanted to do 1-year or PSA and their dog's like 8 months old or 6 months old, however young they are, I'll just ask them, how much training have you been? How long have you been working with your dog? Or we can test some things out.
Being as young as you are, like you are going to run into a lot of people my age that are in their 40s that are like, you have to understand, like, look, I do know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this a while, but they're going to come at you in this form of like, well, you're just a kid. What would you know? And you have to approach them with that same grace that we were talking about. Like, you have to give them grace. You have to get, like, understand. You have to like be nice about it, but also stand up for yourself and be like, look, I know I might be young, but I've studied this hard. I've dedicated my life to this, and I know what I'm doing. And trying to find that balance, it's hard at your age, and so I wonder, like how do you deal with that?
Well, if it's something like seriously harming the dog, I might, feeding off of what you said, like, hey, don't do that. But if it's something where it's just unrealistic expectations or they're doing too much too early, I might say, like, hey, like, slow down a little bit. Like, I know you want so much so early, but just take your time, build the dog, just enjoy training.
Mm-hmm. So you would say, like, more focus on like the obedience side of it first, like just kind of build that rapport with their dog first before they start thinking about their dog going up and doing like what Boot's doing, for example.
You could work on bite work foundations and obedience, but trying to implement word commands and a bunch of other like long 100-yard down stays or like
they're not ready for that yet.
free calls from 200
So what are
yards
some
away.
basics for like bite work? Like what would that be? What would that look like?
Just flirt pull, playing with rags, things like that. Not like, oh my god, he's gonna be in the pocket at like 6 months old.
Right. Yeah. What I see in protection, like when I see a real protection dog, what I view as like a good one is you don't have to work hard to call the dog off of its target. So like when it's biting, you just do a whistle or say the dog's name and it immediately lets go, like what Boot does. Boot just immediately lets go, comes back and comes to you. I see a lot of times in protection work, like in cops, like I see cops and like military guys, they're like literally like, release, release, release. They're saying it a million times and like dragging the dog off. And I'm like, is that right? Because I see, like, is that right? Or is it just a different style? Like, what's going on? Because like, it seems like they're really working hard to get the dog to let go. Like, is that the way it's supposed to be?
It
Like,
depends who you ask. Some people will say, if a dog has a good out, it doesn't bite that hard. I think that's bullshit. And I have some scars that still prove that's bullshit.
doesn't look like they're not biting. They're like, "Arr!" Like, like that looks like a vicious bite to me.
The out command is an obedience command.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that do bite work who don't do obedience because they say the obedience, if you put obedience on your dog too early, it's going to take the intensity out of the dog. Which, the way people do obedience, yes, because you guys don't make obedience fun. You make obedience like, oh, I'm going to pin you down.
Drill sergeant.
Yeah, and it takes drive out of the dog. So a lot of people won't do any obedience until the dog's already like batshit crazy. Because it's easier to dial a dog down than it is to build a dog back up. So by the time the dogs are getting,
Do you think
to
that
the
might
point,
depend on the dog?
I think it's just in general.
Doesn't take that much to get my dog excited. I
So-
stand up and he gets excited.
Well, what I mean to build a dog up. So like a dog, like I have a dog named Jax. You probably have never seen Jax, right? Jax is a spook. I took Jax to Walmart and he took a massive dump inside the first little doors, and I never took him outside again, right? Well, I actually did take him out, but
No, I understand.
yes, I didn't spend no time building him up.
You didn't go back to that Walmart again, though.
It was a couple of
Like,
I
they
had a
know
hat
me
on,
here.
my
Can't go
hoodie,
get this.
I had a ski mask on. Nobody knew it was me. But then Rocco was already a dog who was at a 10. So it's easier to dial him back a little bit to get him to do everything that I needed to than to build the confidence in a dog who is taking shit in Walmart. So that's what I mean. It's easier to slow a dog down than it is to build one up. I could have spent probably 3, 4, 5, 6 years working with Jax, and he would have just been an okay dog. I spent a year working with Rocco, and we made it on, A&E.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
It's interesting, like that you guys come at it from that point of view, because again, like with what I'm trying to do, most of my job is getting people to help their dogs learn how to chill the F out, because their dogs don't know how to do that. So in my experience, it's actually harder to chill a dog out than it is to rile them up. It doesn't take much to rile a dog up and get them excited and driven to do something.
Yeah.
In my experience, just because like that, I mean, again, like people are like, they stand up and the dog's like, where are we going? And I'm like, oh my God, like you're like, it makes me like antsy. I'm like, we're just standing up to go to the kitchen. There's no need to freak out. So I actually am constantly teaching people like, hey, you need to teach your dog to be okay with you standing up and leaving the room, and they don't have a freak out. Like they don't have a conniption. Like,
so the difference between the stuff that you're doing and like sports stuff is
you want them to be excited about what they're doing.
I mean, yes, but
not crazy, but
these
excited.
people, they don't live with their dogs. Their dogs come out, they do a little bite work, boom, 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 and then they go back in the crate. And they spend most of the time in the crate. So the only time the dog ever gets any stimulation is when they're coming out and doing something with them. Yeah. And they understand that once the game is over, they're going to get put up. So that's why a lot of people have trouble with their dogs outing, because the dog learns, shit, once he tells me out, the game's over and I don't get to do nothing fun no more. And then they just think about all of the sad times that they're just sitting there, just waiting and just wanting to bite. So when they get that chance to bite, they put everything in it. And it does create a hard biting, intense dog that's going to go through pressure and everything.
Right. And I've heard like military guys talk about that, where they're like, they want the dog to hold on tight, because they're like, well, what if I told him to out too soon and the guy actually like gets a hold of the dog somehow and everything. I've heard him say all sorts of crazy things, and I'm like, so
yeah. When he's saying, if he told the guy, or he told the dog to come off too early and the dog outed, but the dog is also trained, if they out too early and the guy's still moving, to go bite somewhere else.
Okay.
People make a lot of excuses on why they don't have a clean out. We went to Denmark and trained with the Danish military guys, and best trained dogs I've ever seen. Yeah. They don't use no collars. They don't do, a lot of corrections on them. They just communicate and talk to their dog and clean us out. We got a video where I'm doing a building search and he comes and finds me, boom, 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 we're working, and he's burning out. Don't even yell at the dog.
Dog just stops.
And he's and drops down. And then I like look around and I take off, and the dog's right on me, bites me in the hamstring, like just seconds after he did it. Yeah. He didn't have to tell the dog anything. Because if you actually train and you actually communicate what you want the dog to do, yes, it takes time. It's not a fast track. And we would be over there. We woke up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. We ate breakfast. We got out to the field at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. We worked dogs all day, ate, did everything, went out to dinner, came back. Every single night he had a puppy, and he spent 20 minutes with his dog, and he just sat there. He had his clicker, and he would tell the dog something, and he would just wait. And then the dog would sit, he'd click and give him a treat. Tell him down, he'd just wait, click, give him a treat. And I'm like, and this is when I was new, and I asked him, I said, why don't you like use a leash and
lure him,
get him there? Yeah. And he's like, no, I want him to figure it out.
You stumbled onto something that is something that's really key. I think it's a lost art that I think people have, that we need to reconnect with, is patience.
Oh, for sure.
I think that people, like, they want their dogs to like just sit down now, like, Lord, come on, lay down now. They're using the treats, or they're using the leash. They're just getting, I need you to lay down now. And I think what they're building is a robot where the dog is just waiting for you to give them command. Whereas when you have super, super smart dogs, very active brain dogs, your poodles, your border collies, your Belgian Malinois, your German shepherds, your Rottweilers, your Dobermans, like the dogs that their brains are going 90 miles an hour.
Aussies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I will tell them, like, tell the dog to sit and stand there. Like, when I tell them, like, I want people to like get in front of their door and tell the dog to sit, and make the dog sit before they go out of every single door. Every single doorway, just make them sit. It's just another way to give your dog some mental stimulation throughout the house. Because most people aren't doing bite work. They're just like, I'm just living with my dog. So I'm like, let's come up with some creative ways to get your dog thinking. Maybe every single doorway they go through, you turn around, you make them sit, and then they go through. But I'll tell them, turn around, tell the dog to sit, and stand there and wait. The dog will probably like look at you, look around, like, what am I supposed to do? Why aren't we going outside? They might try to push past you. You block them. Nope, go back over there. Sit. They might try to run away. You'll say, nope, come back over here. Sit. And you just stand there and have them, like, watch the smoke come out of the dog's ears. They're just trying to figure this out. What do I do? And then suddenly they sit down and you just open the door. All right, now you can go out. Yep. And what you're doing is you're challenging, again, you're teaching them how to think, not just what to think all the time. You're teaching your dog to use that big brain of theirs and problem solve. And so I love that, like that's what that guy was doing, because that's exactly what I'll do with a puppy.
I always tell people, I ask them, what language does their dog speak? And I get some crazy answers. And I'm like, oh, they do? I said, you should record. Somebody was like, oh, my dog speaks English. I said, oh, it does? I said, you should record that. It would go viral. And then they
Right.
look at me like I'm stupid. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, your dog doesn't speak
Like
English.
you're the one that said the stupid thing. Yeah.
Your
That's
dog doesn't speak German, French, whatever.
Yeah.
Your dog speaks dogs. Dogs bark, they growl, and they howl. They don't have an extensive vocabulary, but they're responding to our tone. And if I was to say, hey, ¿cómo estás? You're going to have to process
Yeah.
it before you can reply back or even answer the question. If I'm saying sit to this dog, they got to go.
Right. They're really
Oh.
trying to figure it out. Yes.
So you have to give them time.
Yes. Absolutely.
For if you're competing in sport, you have 2 seconds before you start losing points. And I
Yep.
tell them that, hey, in sport, the dog has 2 seconds to comply to your command. In pet obedience in real life, 3 to 5 seconds, I think, is more than enough time for your dog to respond to the command that you gave. If your
but
dog
also,
busts out,
if you give them that time, and they respond,
but they have to figure
and
it
you
out.
and they figure it out, and you repeat the same thing, and you don't waver. You're just like, this is the way we do this. Every time I go to
Mhm.
that door, I expect you to do the same thing. It's to the point now where I'll take my dogs to my door, and if there's no other dogs around bouncing around, like if I turn around, my dogs are just automatically sitting because they're like, this is what we have done since I was a puppy, and
They
it has never
understand the rules
changed.
of the
And so
game.
they do it quicker. So
then
I don't
the
have to
time
wait.
gets shorter.
Yes.
But in the beginning, just allow that time.
Yes.
Allow your dog to
Patience.
process.
Yeah.
Because if you're like, sit, 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 then they're like, all right, 6X, sit means sit.
Right.
Like, no, just
Yeah.
sit and just wait.
And that was what I was about to ask you. Like, when it comes to like puppy training, like what are some realistic expectations? Because you know, some people have unrealistic expectations. What are some realistic expectations that people should have when it comes to training their puppy?
They have generally very short attention spans, so treat it as such. I like to keep it anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. I was about to ask like how much
Yeah.
time, so it was about 5 to 10 minutes.
And I don't do a ton of free shaping in the beginning. I just luring,
Sure.
and then
Well, you have to
later-
teach the
yeah,
command, and then once you taught it, then you ask them to kind of figure it out.
later
Yeah.
on, I like for them to figure it out, kind of sort of on their own. And if they don't get it after a little bit, I'll just slowly. But
Do you use leashes in your training, or do you only use treats? Like for a puppy, I'm talking.
I like to do a mix of both. Primarily treats. I don't like feed
Mhm.
unless
Unless
like
they do
for
it. Unless they do it right. Yeah.
right. Like for my other dog, Creed, he's reactive, so I don't like to feed him full of treats. But I also want to keep him engaged. So
It's that happy
like,
happy
that
medium. Yeah.
balance,
Yeah. Like if you lose his attention, you'll use the treat to kind of get him back, but you want him to like, no, you got to earn this kind of thing. I'm not
Right.
just going to give it to you. Sure. No, that makes sense. Okay. So you'd say about like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. What are some things you guys do to get your dogs to just be calm? Like how do you teach your dog to just like, hey, I just want you to sit on this cot for an hour while I watch TV and just don't move, like, and just chill out. What are some things you guys do?
Did you ever watch WWE growing up?
People's
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
It works. No, I'm
Right.
just kidding.
You can answer that.
tether training. So just tethering them to like a doorknob with the cot right there, and just keeping them there and like rewarding them when they're calm.
Now, what is the reward when they're calm?
Generally treats or affection.
Okay.
Or we can take him off somewhere and have fun.
Sure.
Like,
Now, when they're like what was happening earlier, when they're barking, do you just strictly ignore, or do you correct? How do you deal with the bark?
if they're an older dog, I'll usually correct them, but if they're younger, I'll just wait.
Gotcha.
And then once they're quiet, I'll reward them.
Gotcha. And what does the correction look like for you? Or is it different? Is it different with every dog?
It's different for a lot of dogs. For mine, just the condition marker no. A lot of people's dogs.
How did you condition them to know what no meant? Then?
No, so like for the pawn collar,
Okay.
like when I use a pawn collar with him,
Gotcha.
the word first no, and then like a pop on
Yeah.
the pawn collar.
Gotcha.
But most people, they don't understand the condition markers. They'll just say no.
Right.
They won't
That's
listen.
what we were saying. Your dog
Yeah.
doesn't understand what you're saying.
Right.
You're just barking. You're barking. If they're barking, you're barking. Everybody's barking.
But generally for him, it's conditioned. So when I say no, generally he'll be quiet.
Good. yeah.
In a
Understood.
perfect world.
And-
Yeah,
Yeah.
understood. Yeah.
A good day.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, I mentioned to him like in a previous episode that we've had. I rarely use treats, and that was actually like another thing, like because you were, another thing that we kind of disagree on. But again, we're coming at it from different places.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was doing protection work with one of my dogs, I'm going to do exactly the way you guys do it because I'm training them to do a specific skill. 9 times out of 10, my clients don't want to do bite work. They just want a dog that they can walk down the road with and have it not, lunge at the neighbor's dog. Or they want a dog that they can, eat and not have the dog steal food out of their, out of their hands. Or they want a dog that can just like not bust their window out when their dog is walking,
Knock Granny over when she comes
exactly
over.
Like they just want a dog they can live with. And so what I teach is a lot more of like, hey, like you need to be, it's a lot of just teaching dogs to be calm, but it's also like, how do we fulfill them in a way that is calm? Like, because a lot of times people have no problem going to a dog park, throwing the ball with their dog, and then they go home and their dog sleeps for 4 hours and they go out and like, okay, let's go play fetch again. So the only time they get any type of exercise is, this type of energy. And so, so you turned your dog into a crackhead. So I really try to show them like, hey, there's other ways that we can exercise them that's slow. And it's like, it makes them think about things. It's more like processing, like just setting up an obstacle course and walking the obstacle course. Your dog wants to run, so force them to slow down. That's brain work. So they're having to jump over things, but they're having to stay close with you and walk with you. And I teach people how to do things like that to get them to be, to get their dog to just kind of chill, just take a deep breath. But then I also teach them like the reward should be when you have a calm dog that is chill and can go places with you. The reward is they get to spend time with you. So I don't pay my dogs with treats a lot of times. I pay them with the amount of time they get to spend with me because I don't have to leave them at home when I go places. My dogs go with me everywhere. They can go to the gym with me. They can go to the grocery store. They can go everywhere. And yes, I am a hard ass and I say, I need you to pay attention. I need you to focus. But look at how much time we get to spend together when most people, their dogs are stuck at home because they can't take their dogs in the public everywhere.
Oh,
So I do have a little bit of a different like mindset around treats, but I also know like my dogs get excited when I grab that leash. They know, oh, we get to go somewhere. And that's enough. Like that's like them like, oh, yay, we get to go somewhere with dad. Like this is fun. We don't have to stay in our crate. Because that whole look that you do get from your dogs when you're leaving, it is a sign that they're a little bit like, oh, like he's leaving again, And so like if they get to come with me, I don't need to give him a treat. I am the treat. You getting to spend time with me is the treat. So kind of bouncing off of that, or to bring it home, like you were saying, I was gonna ask like, what is the reward always a treat? But then you kind of answered, and you're so like, no, sometimes it's like we'll just go out and engage with them and everything. And so yeah.
So the reason why I like using treats is because you can get a lot of reps in without them needing. So like when you throw a ball, that's maybe 3 minutes of them chasing them, boom, boom, boom. We got to get it back. When you get treats, I can get 10 reps in and damn near 10 seconds. Boom, good rep, good rep, good rep, good rep, and I can pay them. And then you start weeding them off. If a dog likes a ball, I'm going to that eventually after they understand, because now you're going to get that speed, now you're going to get that intensity, and then you're going to get that drive. Because if your dog's full, they're not going to care about a treat. They're not.
And most people don't want to walk around with a treat pouch everywhere they go. Like they don't want to keep treats in there. They like, I want my dog to just behave, and I don't have to like pay them every 5 minutes with treats to get them to behave. It's like understandable.
I tell people that, but I tell people in the beginning, do it.
Yeah.
If you want your dog to do these things in public, have something that you can reward them for it.
Something.
I would have cargo pants, and I would, the big pocket at the bottom, and I would just
like
stick them in there.
Yeah.
And I would sit at, there's a restaurant called Cantina Laredo. I'll go downtown. They have very good margaritas. I would sit out there. It was a nice little sectioned off place. It had a wall over here, with one table. I could put my dog under there. He can get socialized. He learn to chill. And every so often, I drop handful of hot dogs out. He's like, oh shit, I sleep and I get hot dogs. So then he started learning that him sleeping was a good thing when we went out in public.
Right.
He was still.
It's like food just falls from heaven when I go to sleep. This is amazing.
It's raining dogs.
It's awesome.
But he also learned that when we go out in public, this is what he's going to do. He's definitely, Rocco was always aware of everything that was going on. I was never worried about anything with him.
Yeah.
But he started to learn that when we're in certain environments, I can chill. If I need to get up, I'll hear it, whatever it is. But I did reward him. And then it got to the point where, I don't have to take anything with him anymore. So, but people need to have something that their dog wants to work for, because they're going to these distraction environments, and the distraction is more stimulating than them.
Absolutely.
And that's the problem, because people's dogs really don't like them. And I tell people that.
I tell people, you got to be more interesting than a squirrel.
And it's one of those hard, conversations. You be like, hey, your dog doesn't like you. Yes, my dog loves me. I feed it. I'm like, your dog really doesn't like you, because if your dog liked you, it would want to come back to you. Yeah. It would want to be around you. It wouldn't. It would
choose you over the squirrel, which right now it's choosing the squirrel. That's because you're not interesting. You don't have anything to offer the dog. You're not.
I've gotten some comments. You're teaching that dog how to jump out of a fence. No, I'm not. I'm teaching my dog to jump when I tell him to.
Yeah.
I have a 4-foot fence in my backyard. Boot can easily clear the fence.
Yeah.
You know what he does?
Doesn't.
Stays in the fence.
Yeah.
Rocco easily could clear a 6-foot fence in his younger years.
Yep. My dog Toby could definitely clear a 6-foot fence, because I tried it one day. I was just like, I wonder, and he knows his word is over. So if I say over, he jumps over something. And I looked at the fence and I looked at him and I was like, over. And just he kind of ran up there. He stopped for a second and he ran back and looked at me. I was like, do it, try it. And he jumped over it, and I was like, oh, okay. So whenever I get a house, I need an 8-foot fence. Okay, so clearly that's what that means. But no, but that's the thing is
fence is still a suggestion.
Yeah, but
if a dog wants to get out, they're getting out.
But that's the thing. I noticed now, same thing. He could be a 4-foot fence. If I haven't given him the command to go over, he doesn't go over. Even if there's a squirrel or something on the other end and he runs over there to investigate, he doesn't try to jump over, even though he knows he can, because I didn't tell him he could.
No, because you're more interesting than the dog.
Yes.
The dog's not going to want to leave if they're getting fulfilled where they're at.
And so figure out what does motivate your dog. It's not always going to be food. It's not always going to be toys. It's not always going to be, treats. It's not always going to be you. It can just be something that's
who like belly rubs.
Right, exactly. Sometimes it's just affection. There's I had a pit bull I was training that was really strange, but not food motivated at all. I tried to give him a treat and he kind of looked at it, and then he looked over at something else and I was like, okay, so that doesn't work. I need to find something else that motivates him. Of course, what I found that motivated him is as soon as I started petting him, he was like, oh, I love that. So to get him to do what I needed him to do, I would just pet him.
All right, so we've been talking about dogs a lot. Now I think this is really important for people to learn.
Mm-hmm.
What is something running the dog business? Because you can be great with dogs. You can know everything about dogs, but if you don't know business and can't deal with people, it's not going to work. So what's one of the biggest surprises that you've, came across in your business? Because she wants to eventually start being a dog trainer.
Yeah.
And making profit. Because, training dogs is fun, but you got to be able to put some food in your belly and feed your dogs as well. So
as far as the business side of it, I worked for I kind of had the pleasure of, not pleasure, but I had the experience of working for a lot of different companies. I mean, I've done so many jobs you would not believe the kind of jobs I've done. So I got a lot of.
They've all been PG.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't have an OnlyFans. We gotta make sure, you got to specify that.
You do not want to see me exotic dance. I promise you. No, but no, it's just working a lot of jobs. I kind of got a lot of experience just understanding business side of stuff just by working. And so one of the things I tell people who do want to go into dog training business, I'm like, work somewhere else to just get the idea of what it's like, just running finances, just a business bank account and build up your business credit. Because you're going to learn those kinds of things, or just learn, how to set up an Excel sheet, things like that, just normal things that, the people probably wouldn't think about would be in a dog training business, but they are. Now, I will say that in the dog training business, the way we are unique, and this is what's funny when I hear people say, I got into dog training so I wouldn't have to deal with people. I'm like, you're in the wrong business. Yeah. Because I've
never had a dog pay me at all.
Yeah,
they don't have the tap on them just yet.
Exactly.
I think eventually, in the next 5 years, they'll have a chip in their shoulder.
The chip is actually what you scan. Yep, exactly.
Cool. I got paid. Come pick up your dog. I'll put him in the box. Go ahead. We don't have to deal with people at all. But
patent that. It's a good idea.
Right.
It's a people business, and so the more you can relate to people, the more you can be empathetic to what their needs are. I got I think, really successful because I listened to people before I started talking, which you guys have seen now. I got a lot to say. I could talk for a while. I've been doing this for a while. I'm pretty passionate about what I do. I will talk your ear off. But I start, like, before I even start talking on my consultations, I say, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about the dog. What are your expectations? What are you wanting to get from this? And I sit back and I listen, and it could take 15 to 20 minutes of me just being in silence. I may ask a question here and there to get a little clarification on something they said, but for the most part, it's, I want to know who you are. I want to know what you do. I want to know what kind of dog it is. I want to know, like, what your struggles are, because then I know how to help you. Listening is very, very important, and also addressing their needs. So I can go a roundabout way and say, like, hey, this is what's happening. This is what needs to happen. And they're probably thinking like, my dog is pulling on a leash. And I'm like, you need to get the dog off the couch. How is that going to help my dog not pull on a leash? I'm like, well, your dog doesn't respect you. It's not about obedience at this point. So with a lot of dogs, pulling on a leash has little to do with obedience. They can have really, really well-trained dogs, but the dog is like lunging and pulling at stuff. I'm like, that's not an obedience thing. Your dog doesn't respect you. So like, you getting them off the couch, you getting them off the bed, you having a little bit more structure, now you've earned a little bit more respect. Because I listened, I can address and say, like, actually, I know you love sleeping with your dog, but that is affecting your relationship when you want them to behave out there. It doesn't mean the dog can never get in the bed with you. It just means that right now, the way you're doing it, your dog thinks that you're just a litter mate. You're not really, you're not a leader. You're just like, but I listen to them and I really try to relate to them. And I can come at it from also a lot of times, I can be empathetic, but yeah, people are the business. And so the more you can listen, the more you can teach. So if you can teach people and you can actually coach them on a level that makes sense to them, because not everybody's different. Some people learn differently. Being a people person is going to help you be a lot more successful in this business. But yeah,
you got to be able to turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. And it's
exhausting.
Yeah,
really.
It is. I mean, and I tell people, man, at the end of a training like day, I'm done. I just want to go home and do nothing. I don't want to think about anything, especially if there's a lot of different personalities there, because you got to dial it up, dial it back, dial it up, dial it back.
Yes.
The dogs are the easy part. The dogs, they know what you can get a dog to do anything.
Yeah.
But you have to get the people to understand it. And like you said, the first thing I ask people, I'm like, well, what did you do growing up? They're like, oh, I like video games. Cool. I'm making video game references. Oh, I played sports. I'm making sports references. And if I don't know, I'll like make an outrageous reference, say like they were like a figure skater, right? And I'd be like, you know, when you spun and you did your thing and then you had to practice it, and they're like, oh yeah, I know what you meant. I'm like, all right, cool. Do the same thing with your dog, like so. And then they just try to make them understand on a level that they can understand.
A good coach will see not what the dog is doing, but we'll see what the human is doing that is making the dog respond that way, and then you can help them adjust. So.
And then you tell people like, hey, don't compare yourself to how I look. Don't try to do what I'm doing.
Exactly.
This is every day for 10 years with thousands of dollars.
What I tell people though is be you, but be confident. And that is what dogs respond to. Dogs they want to follow someone who knows where they're going. If you don't know where you're going, your dog's going to be all over the place. You're going to be like, I'm not going to follow you. You don't know what's going on here. I want to go follow that guy. He knew exactly where we were headed.
You got to find your character. And then you'd be like, and you can do all the jutsu. Yeah. So, do you have any questions while we're wrapping this up? Have you been thinking? You've been pondering?
What is your first step with, let's say, a aggressive dog case? Also, to add on to that, like genetic versus environmental. Like, how would you go about that?
Gotcha. Okay, so good questions. Again, it's a very complicated answer because dogs can be aggressive for hundreds of different reasons.
Let's talk about food aggression.
I would say, so for like resource guarding, I would say most of the time when it comes to resource guarding, most of the time it's out of fear. It's very rare that you get that one dog that's just an asshole. You do get them, but I mean, in that case, it's a completely different route. But you were talking about like genetics. I would say that who your dog is about 30% of their genetics. 70% is how you raise them. You can get the dog that was bred to be the best herding dog on the planet. But if you do not feed into that, they're going to be a terrible herding dog. So like, and you can get a dog that maybe doesn't have all the best instincts, but if you put in time and put in work and you are like the type of person that's like, no, we're going to get this, your dog will be the greatest herding dog on the planet. So it's way more nurture than it is nature. However, there is like, if you have a Great Pyrenees, a lot of my clients, when they deal with resource guarding, for some reason, everyone in Texas loves a Great Pyrenees. I've had like 8 clients in the last like 2 years that have had Great Pyrenees. I'm like, what are you doing with that dog down in Texas, first off?
And those dogs are supposed to be outside guarding livestock.
Right, exactly. But then they wonder, why is this dog growling at me every time I try to reach for its food? And I'm like, because that dog was bred to guard stuff that they think is theirs. So once they think it's theirs, they guard it. And they only allow things around it that they feel comfortable with. Like, for instance, when you put them out there with your goats, those goats belong to the dog. And that's what you want. You want them to think, these are my goats. Don't touch my goats. And the only people they let around the goats are people they know. But there's even some people who have those dogs that are like, there's a certain goat that I will not touch because the dog will even come at me if I touch that goat. But you want that because you want your goats to be safe from mountain lions, coyotes and things like that. And so the first step is I have to evaluate, yes, like what is the breed? What are we dealing with here? Is it a Chihuahua? Because the way I approach a Chihuahua is going to be a lot different than the way I approach a Cane Corso. I'm not going to just wrestle a Cane Corso if it comes at me over food. We're going to deal with that in a different way. But if there's a Chihuahua, typically it's going to be the same way. I'm going to, if it's food's down there, I'm going to ask it to back up. If it comes at me, I'm going to roll it. I'm going to get off. No, you're not going to do that to me. It's going to bite my hand. My hand is not going anywhere. I'm going to teach you, you don't come at me like that. However, once the dog is up, or once the dog is calm, it's relaxed, it's chilled out, I let it up and I say, okay, now you can eat, because I have calmed the brain down. Most of the time when it comes to food aggression, it's all about where the brain is. Is their brain excited? Like those dogs that just like are hoovers and they just suck in their food. That's not a good relationship with your food. I don't want the dogs to be sucking their food down like that. Like, just crunch, take some bites. We're not going to Chuck E. Cheese. We're just eating dinner. So I teach them, like, if you're making feeding time exciting, like, you ready for your dinner? Ready for your dinner? And then the dog's like, arr, and then you walk by them. They're like, get out of my food. Like, yeah, you've kind of, again, you've nurtured that. So first step is evaluate what kind of a dog is it. Also, what is the energy in the house when things like that are happening, when they're around? Like, are there lots of kids around? Are there lots of kids stealing the dog's toys all the time? Like, what's going on, in the environment? But it is, it's just kind of an individualistic thing. But how I approach it is very, very much so about like how big the dog is. I'm not getting bit. So like if it's a big dog and it's coming at people with food, most of the time I'm just going to teach them how to manage the environment to make sure that nobody gets around the dog and we can make the dog feel safe in that environment. We might do some switcheroos. Like I'll grab a leash, I'll get far away so the dog's eating over there, and I'll try to call them off the food rather than try to push them off the food. Hey, come here. And if they come here, thank you for coming away from your food. Here's a treat. Well done. You can go back to your food now.
You said earlier it was like a 70-30 nurture nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like just one example. Like, so Vader in there,
Mm-hmm.
purebred American Bull Terrier.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those kinds of dogs are just pit bulls in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's videos of pit bulls like attacking each other, like latching onto each other at like less than 8 weeks old. Yeah. So that's over 200 years.
That's genetics.
Dog fighting.
So I'm a little bit. This is where like the science guy is going to come out now. So those dogs were not bred to fight. What they were bred to do is they were bred as terriers. And terriers, the way that they kill vermin, which you see a Jack Russell Terrier is going to do the same exact thing a Pit Bull Terrier is going to do. They grab it and they shake. So they grab, they hold on, and they shake. That's a very, very terrier thing to do. Now, what we did was they were also bred to pull. They're very strong. So like in World War I, they were bred to like pull equipment. So that's where they get a lot. Yeah, you'll see a lot of like in World War I, not so much in World War II. You'll see a lot of pictures of like bull terriers and pit bulls and, Rottweilers and stuff where they hooked up harnesses to them and they're pulling a lot of equipment. They're very, very strong. They're just really strong. I would say in temperament tests, pit bulls do not test any different. Now, I am also not of like there's some pit bull advocates that take it a little too far and they go like, they're softer and more gentler than any other breed. And I'm like, I'm not going to go that far. But as far as behavior, they're no different than any other breed. The thing is that they are very strong. So when you find a dog or a litter or like that is that way, you nurture it, that's what you're going to get. If you correct it, it goes away. So I will say that there's a very big variability in breeding nowadays, and it's not just pit bulls. Pit bulls get a lot of press, and so I mean that they're anytime you hear about a bite, it's always a pit bull. That is not because the only bites out there are pit bulls. You want to know?
That's a lot of mislabeling.
Yes,
for
exactly,
sure.
exactly. A lot of mislabeling, but there's also a lot of because it's the same. I'm sure you probably get this just with race. It is the same thing. It's like people think that black people are the only people that are out there robbing, and it's like, no, that's not what's happening, but that's what's getting reported because it's just the media has this spotlight on things. So they have a spotlight on pit bulls.
Let me interrupt. So I used to believe that if you didn't show them and you didn't scratch them, they would never be a dog fighting some bit.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, and I got one, and I never did anything. Never put him in front of another dog. He was cool. He would be social. I had him out with my other dogs. He was boom, 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 and then one day the light goes on, and when the light goes on, there's nothing that you can do about it.
So what I was getting to is that again, it's not that they're any different than any other, say, terrier. The same thing would happen with a Jack Russell.
Oh, for sure.
Once they get hooked on something and fixated, they don't come off. The thing about pit bulls is that because they're so big, they're more dangerous. Whereas a Jack Russell, you could get away from me. You do that to the pit bull, it's not going to happen that way.
Pits also aren't human aggressive.
So
Yeah.
So
typically,
they're
typically.
a true
But what is happening
American
is
pit bull is not human aggressive.
Right.
Bullies, those things that they mixed and added other things.
right. But
because
that's where you're getting into
when they were going in the box, and when they, back in the day when they were doing things,
Yes.
there was 3 people. And if any of the dogs came up to a person, that dog didn't make it out of that.
Or they were
Right.
cold.
Right. But that's also another thing what we were talking about, the, breeding nowadays. There's a lot of bad breeding. There's a lot of bad breeders out there. And so most of the time, if you see pit bulls that are that aggressive, that young, a lot of times there's a lot of times where there's
They're actually
inbreeding-
wanting that. So, but that is a
inbreeding.
topic for
But
another
yeah,
day
yeah.
because we got to wrap it up. But yes,
that's
you guys got to stay tuned for the next one. We will have them back on.
it's a good discussion.
And we're
Yes,
going to talk
absolutely.
about the Pit Bull Terrier. So make sure you guys subscribe to the short channel. We got the membership program. Hit the list, hit the button, do all of those things. Make sure you take care of your dog. Is there anything that you guys want to leave the people with?
No, this is great. I'm ready to do it again.
Hey, just take care of your dog, people.